Dark Unity, the story of Sansha's nation. Part 1. Origins of a Nightmare. Sansha's nation is one of the darkest and most disturbing creations in the history of New Eden. What began as a utopian vision quickly transformed into a horrific dystopia. To understand how this terrifying entity came to be, we have to go back almost a century to the early days of capsuleer history, and to one man whose obsession with control and perfection would shape the lives and deaths of millions. That man was Sansha Kuvakei. Kuvakei was born in the Kaldari state, a wealthy and powerful industrialist with a sharp mind and a deep disdain for what he saw as the chaos of modern society. He watched the wars, the piracy, the greed of corporations, and the instability of governments, and concluded that humanity was fundamentally broken. To fix it, he believed, would require more than laws or politics. It would require the removal of human flaws, literally. Kuvakei was a transhumanist at heart. He believed that through a combination of cybernetic enhancement and neural conditioning, humanity could be perfected. He imagined a society free from crime, poverty, and rebellion. A society where every citizen served the greater good with absolute loyalty, not because they were forced, but because their minds had been redesigned to want nothing else. To this end, Kuvakei began secret research into advanced cybernetics and mind control. He combined neural interface technology with implantable control systems that could override human thought and emotion. What he created was a new class of human, the true slave. These were people stripped of their autonomy, connected to a central control network, and programmed to obey. To most of New Eden, the idea was monstrous, but Kuvakei didn't hide what he was doing. He was proud of it. He established a new state in the Stain region, far from the core empires, and called it Sansha's nation. There he promised safety, stability, and prosperity. Colonists came willingly, enticed by promises of a better life, and for a while it seemed real. The nation flourished. Crime was non-existent. Resources were shared. Everyone had a place and a purpose. But beneath the surface, the truth was much darker. The nation's prosperity was built on forced conversion. Those who arrived were implanted. Those who resisted were never seen again. Children were raised as slaves from birth. The true slaves lost their individuality, their memories, and eventually, even their names. Archived news footage. YC-37. Source: Concord Public Broadcasts. Massive cybernetic facilities uncovered in the Outer Rim colonies. This latest footage appears to show entire communities living under mind control. Reports from escapees claim a total loss of autonomy. All attempts at negotiation have failed. When the major empires realized what was happening, they acted quickly. Concord, the interstellar policing body, branded Kuvakei a criminal and launched a joint military operation to destroy his regime. Massive fleets were dispatched into the Stain region. Battles raged for weeks. One by one, Kuvakei's strongholds were torn apart. Eventually, his capital was located and attacked. His personal ship, a prototype supercarrier, was destroyed. Kuvakei was presumed dead, and the remnants of Sansha's nation were scattered and silent. For decades, it was believed to be the end. But Sansha's nation didn't die. It went silent. Interview: Professor Ira Chelm, Sociology Department, University of Kail. The terrifying thing about Kuvakei was that he didn't seek destruction. He sought order. When the nation disappeared, we assumed it was gone. But in retrospect, what we witnessed was a chrysalis. The nation was cocooning, evolving. Part 2. rise of the Incursions. Years later, a strange phenomenon began. Entire colonies started disappearing from the outer systems. Distress calls were cut short by static. Surveillance feeds showed ships appearing out of nowhere. Massive, sleek, unlike anything seen before. These vessels had no identifying markers, no transponders, and moved with mechanical precision. These were the Incursions. Coordinated invasions led by new versions of the nation's ships, nightmares, revenants, and others, poured into imperial space through unknown means. They targeted specific systems, disabling infrastructure and abducting civilians in large numbers. Defenders were often overwhelmed by the sheer coordination of the attacks. The true slaves fought with perfect discipline. They didn't fear death. They didn't retreat. They didn't speak. The technology used by Sansha's nation had advanced beyond anything seen before. These ships used wormhole-like conduits known only to the nation. Their command structure was decentralized, but not disorganized. In fact, it was terrifyingly efficient. Each fleet operated as a neural extension of Kuvakei's will, directed by command units called nation overseers or true generals, each enhanced to serve as battlefield coordinators. At the heart of the military structure was the true slave network. This was more than just a communication system. It was a hive mind. Each true slave was neurally linked to their commander and the rest of the unit. Orders weren't given, they were felt. Tactics were executed without hesitation. If a unit was lost, its data was immediately absorbed by the network and adapted into new strategies. This made Sansha's fleet incredibly adaptive. No two incursions followed the same pattern. Capsuleers who had fought them in one region would find that the nation had already countered their tactics the next time. It was a learning machine, and the input was war. Interview. Fleet Commander, Audrin Tovil, Capsuleer Militia Wing. Fighting the nation is like trying to box a shadow. They watch, they remember. If you punch once, they counter twice. By the time you've adapted, they've already rewritten the playbook. Part 3. The Ideology of Unity. Philosophically, Kuvakei's vision hadn't changed. In his few intercepted broadcasts, he spoke of the burden of free will. In his view, human suffering was the result of choice, the ability to be selfish, to make mistakes, to betray. His nation offered salvation through submission. It offered clarity, order, the elimination of fear and pain. Individuality, Kuvakei claimed, was the great lie of the modern age. True freedom came not from the right to choose, but from the release from having to choose at all. It is this ideology that continues to attract followers even now. Fringe cults throughout New Eden align themselves with the nation. Some actively seek conversion. Others act as sleeper agents, sabotaging infrastructure and spreading Kuvakei's teachings. There are even rumors of compromised capsuleers. Those who encountered the nation were captured and returned, changed. Archived transmission, unauthorized broadcast intercept. Origin unknown. You suffer because you resist. You hurt because you choose to hurt. Let go. The nation welcomes all. Let go. Part 4. The Machinery of War. Inside the true slave military structure. Despite its seemingly chaotic appearances, the military wing of Sansha's nation operates with terrifying precision. To understand the scope of its power, one must look beyond the true slaves and into the strategic architecture that enables the nation's campaigns to be so ruthlessly effective. At the top of the military hierarchy stands Sansha Kuvakei himself, not as a general issuing orders by traditional means, but as a core node of the true slave network. His commands aren't dispatched in words but in encoded pulses through the neural mesh that binds his commanders. Beneath him are the true generals, cybernetically enhanced humans who retain enough individuality to interpret and direct localized strategy. Each true general is embedded within a command vessel, often a modified Revenant-class supercarrier, and serves as a node that disseminates orders through the fleet. These officers are not mere relays. They are amplifiers of Kuvakei's will, and their presence is often felt in the form of altered tactical doctrine, increased aggression, or sudden withdrawals that appear psychic in nature. The true slaves form the core fighting force. Stripped of autonomy, they function like an organic machine. Infantry, drone pilots, engineers, and even logistics units are neurally coordinated and share tactical feedback in real time. These soldiers feel neither fear nor confusion. They do not hesitate. They do not question. When one is killed, another takes their place with identical proficiency. Beneath the surface of the nation's fleets, support units maintain cybernetic sync arrays, AI logistics routing systems, and biochemical monitoring of slave populations. Drone operators, themselves true slaves, interface directly with battlefield nanite swarms and atmospheric suppressor units during planetary raids. Many Capsuleer fleets have reported engagement with sub-commander constructs, grotesque, half-organic, half-synthetic battlefield leaders grown in vats and encoded with simplified versions of Sansha's tactics. These constructs can override the command hierarchy of fallen true generals and keep the operation running, a redundancy that makes the nation extraordinarily difficult to decapitate. The nation's ships, particularly the Nightmare and Revenant classes, are powered by high-density core fusion reactors and integrated slave brain navigational systems. It's believed that each major vessel contains at least one human mind embedded into the ship's processing core, responsible for strategic computation and predictive modeling of enemy tactics. Interview: Capsuleer Vael Rendar, Black Rise Incursion veteran. We tried to kill the command vessel. You know, the usual blitz strategy. But when the Revenant fell, nothing changed. They didn't flinch. No loss of coordination. No drop in response time. It was like killing a finger and expecting the body to notice. Part 5. Wars in the Shadows, Pirate Faction Conflicts. While Sansha's nation has always loomed large as a threat to the major empires, it is far from the only power operating in the void. Other pirate factions, each with their own territories and ideologies, have clashed with the nation, often violently. Blood Raiders, for instance, view the nation as an abomination. Known for their obsession with blood rituals and cloning research, the Raiders believe in spiritual transcendence through sacrifice. Kuvakei's cold, mechanical vision of unity is sacrilege to them. Skirmishes have been recorded in the Delve and Paragon Sol regions, where Blood Raider harvest fleets intercepted nation slave convoys. In one known instance, a Raider vessel broadcast a chilling message: "We do not bleed for unity, we bleed for ascension. Your machines will rust, your faithless will scream." Angel Cartel, operating in Curse and surrounding regions, has a more practical concern. As smugglers and mercenaries, they rely on information warfare, shadow contracts, and technology theft. Sansha's incursions into cartel-controlled space have disrupted their trade lines and provoked a series of proxy wars. Despite their technological prowess, cartel forces have struggled to counter the nation's hive-coordinated tactics. Angel commanders have been known to hire Capsuleers to push back against nation forces, sometimes even supplying salvaged Sansha tech for analysis. Then there are the Guristas pirates, operating primarily in venal and outer Kaldari space. Unlike the raiders or cartel, the Guristas see Kuvakei's network as a potential tool. Intelligence reports suggest that Gurista scientists have attempted to reverse engineer true slave neural implants, perhaps hoping to control their own troops in a similar fashion. However, nation retaliation has been swift and brutal, often wiping out entire Guristas research stations with surgical precision. Archived Guristas intercept, recovered from destroyed relay node. We thought we could out-hack them. That was our first mistake. Our second mistake was underestimating how fast they could learn. They used our own fleet formations against us, 20 minutes after the first skirmish. Some theorists believe these inter-pirate wars serve a dual purpose for Kuvakei, testing new tactical configurations against unpredictable enemies, and eliminating any rival ideologies before they can pose a real threat to the nation's expansion. Part 6. Psychological warfare and conversion campaigns. Perhaps the most insidious aspect of Sansha's nation is not its fleets, but its message. While Concord tracks ships and engagements, it has a harder time quantifying something else: the spread of Kuvakei's ideology through subversive propaganda and viral mindware. During and after incursions, some systems experience not only infrastructure damage, but psychological contamination. Local populations begin exhibiting signs of trauma, intrusive thoughts, personality alterations, and in some cases, neural synchronization with nation broadcasts. Kuvakei's operatives deploy subspace resonance signals during planetary raids. These pulses are believed to interfere with cortical decision-making centers. In some regions, people began hearing the nation's voice days before an incursion occurred. Afterward, some survivors reported feelings of profound peace, relief, and a sense of belonging. All classic hallmarks of high-grade psychological conditioning. Archived interview, survivor, Hedion 4 incursion. It was like a warm hand on my shoulder. It said I didn't need to worry anymore, that I could rest. And when the ships came, I wasn't scared. I walked toward them. The most dangerous converts, however, are capsuleers. While protected by their implants and clones, some capsuleers have reportedly been compromised during extended engagements with nation command vessels. These pilots, sometimes called sleeper seeds, retain outward autonomy, but subtly alter their tactics, communications, and fleet doctrines. In extreme cases, they've turned against their own fleets mid-battle, citing revelations or newfound purpose. Concord's DHI, Division of Hostile Infiltration, is currently studying potential mimetic hazards embedded in nation data streams. Some recovered true slave implants have been classified as cogniphage threat level gamma, reserved for tech that can alter consciousness simply through interaction. Debrief, DHI agent, redacted name. They don't just conquer systems, they rewrite them. People, politics, perception. Kuvakei doesn't need to win battles. He needs us to ask ourselves, what if he's right? That's the real war. Part 6. The technological evolution of nation ships. The ships of Sansha's nation are more than weapons of war. They are manifestations of ideology, instruments of terror, and living symbols of transhumanist doctrine. Their evolution over time traces a path from crude repurposing to fully integrated cybernetic ecosystems, each hull a node in Kuvakei's growing networked consciousness. Early vessels, hybrid hulls, and prototype tech. The first generation of nation ships were unsophisticated by today's standards. Kuvakei, operating in secrecy within the Stain region, relied heavily on Caldari and Amar hull designs, fitting as his own origins lay in Caldari space, and his ideology mirrored the Amar's obsession with order and obedience. These early ships often appeared as modified Badgers or Augurers, retrofitted with enhanced slave control nodes and crewed drone bays. They were slow, vulnerable, and largely dependent on sheer numbers and shock tactics. Still, they served their purpose: to ferry abductees, subdue colonies, and begin mass conversions. But it was the emergence of the Nightmare class that marked a critical turning point. This vessel was the first wholly unique nation ship, fusing Caldari shield systems with Amar energy weaponry, and laying the foundation for what would become a distinct aesthetic: angular, pulsing with eerie green light, and clearly biomechanical. More importantly, it was one of the first warships fully integrated into the true slave network, functioning as a command hub with real-time synchronization between drones, weapons, and other vessels. Mid-period evolution, learning machines, and cybernetic swarms. The nation's second generation of ships revealed a massive leap in cybernetic integration. Hulls became sleeker, stronger, and imbued with reactive armor systems. True slaves were hardwired into the ships themselves, not merely as crew, but as components. A vessel's bridge crew was often just a row of minds stacked in vertical chambers, their consciousnesses distributed across the ship's control systems. These ships began to act less like hardware and more like organisms. They showed emergent behavior, squadron-level tactical adaptation, precision formation flying without verbal commands, and sensory harmonics that disrupted enemy target locking and audio processing. Drone technology also evolved during this era. Instead of deploying traditional drones, nation ships began using semi-sentient constructs, biomechanical units with imprinted tactical behaviors and direct uplinks to the true slave network. These drones communicated not in bursts of code, but in encrypted neural impulses, making them nearly impossible to jam or intercept. Current vessels, fleet-integrated consciousness. Modern nation vessels, like the Revenant-class supercarrier, function as distributed network cores. These ships are less fleet command platforms and more like mobile AI clusters, capable of routing incursion-wide data through thousands of neural processors. The Revenant acts as the mind of an entire battle group, with subordinate ships acting as its limbs and eyes. Technological features include quantum signal lattice arrays, enabling real-time decision sharing across light years of space, adaptive psychosuppressors, onboard systems that emit signals designed to destabilize enemy crews and interfere with capsuleer neural links, silent warp wake drives, modified propulsion units that mask movement across standard sensor grids, creating ghost fleets that appear mid-orbit without warning. Reports from destroyed Revenants reveal interior chambers filled with organic components, central brains, nutrient fluid tanks, and spine-like conduits laced with mind control nodules. These ships do not have bridges. They are bridges between mind and machine. And yet, some analysts believe this is not the final form. Speculation points to experimental vessels, never seen in the wild, designed as fully autonomous AI constructs. These ships would not be piloted, even by true slaves, but grown in nation facilities, controlled entirely by synthetic intelligences tied to Kuvakei's own neural pattern. Some suggest the nation may be working toward the creation of ships that think, decide, and even reproduce on their own. Part 7. A speculative look at Kuvakei's endgame. To understand what Sansha Kuvakei ultimately wants, one must abandon traditional notions of power, control, and conquest. Kuvakei's vision is not of territorial domination or economic superiority. It is a philosophical mission, a crusade against the entropy of free will, the chaos of human emotion, and the burden of individuality. Phase 1. Containment and conversion. The first phase of Kuvakei's plan has already been underway for decades, the silent harvesting of human minds. Through incursions, nation forces infiltrate vulnerable systems, abduct civilians, and convert them into true slaves. This is not just for military expansion. It is the sowing of neural architecture across New Eden, a dispersed consciousness being constructed node by node, mind by mind. Some estimate that entire planetary populations have disappeared without a trace. Those captured are not simply brainwashed. They are erased and rewritten, becoming cells in a new organism. This isn't conquest, it's replication. Phase 2. Psychological destabilization. Kuvakei's next phase is subtler, the erosion of ideological resistance. Through sleeper agents, subliminal transmissions, and even alleged manipulation of galactic news networks, the nation spreads a dark gospel, one that whispers to the disillusioned, "You are suffering. Let us end it." His intercepted broadcasts rarely speak of domination. They speak of peace, relief, the cessation of pain through the surrender of thought. Kuvakei is not a warlord in his own mind. He is a healer. And New Eden, wounded by endless war and corporate exploitation, may be more susceptible than we think. Many fringe sects already revere Kuvakei as a prophet. Entire cults exist to glorify conversion. Some capsuleers even volunteer for integration, seeking what they call liberation from the self. If enough of the cluster accepts him willingly, there may never need to be a final war. Phase 3. The Ascension Protocol. Rumored but never confirmed, the Ascension Protocol is believed to be Kuvakei's final move, a simultaneous neural activation event across the entire cluster. This would not be an invasion in the traditional sense. It would be a network detonation, pre-placed nodes activating, converting planetary infrastructures, overriding capsuleer clones, and triggering mass synchronization across all connected systems. Entire fleets could be taken over in seconds. Entire populations would become part of the nation without ever firing a shot. Whether through synthetic viral code, sleeper implants, or frequency-induced override, the Ascension Protocol would turn New Eden into a single mind. Kuvakei would not be its ruler, but its conscience. As one intercepted signal warned, "You fear your freedom because you fear your failure. We offer a world without fear. When the ascension comes, you will thank us."